Just before we talk to Sebastian Gorka, a former Trump aide, of course, in the White House, let us have a listen and a watch if you're seeing us on YouTube right now, or Facebook, or Twitter, where we're live streaming. Let's have a look at President Donald Trump from last night.
But who knows? Who knows? I may even decide to beat them for a third time, okay? For a third time.
I mean, absolutely tremendous performance by Donald Trump. He was an hour and 10 minutes late, like all great rock stars. He kept them waiting. They were absolutely gagging for it by the time he took to the stage. Let's talk to Sebastian Gorka, his former aide, of course, in the White House. Sebastian, what a performance!
It was the Trump that we all know and love. Absolutely in command of the audience. Funny. Off script a couple of times, and then very serious when it comes to issues such as the lockdown and the disastrous job that sleepy, creepy Beijing Biden is doing. And first things first, it's the thing that you said at the very end, and we remarked upon it. My wife and I were watching it live. He looks amazing. I mean, Look at photographs of Obama on the first day in office and 4 years later. Look at photographs of George Bush. This is a job that chewed people up and spat them out. They went gray. Donald Trump, he's like Benjamin Button. He looks younger than he did when he was sworn in as president. So an amazing, amazing evening. And of course, he did exactly what I predicted. He made the left's heads explode when he toyed with them. I wonder who should run in 2024. And he said, who, I wonder who. And the audience, of course, went insane, saying, it's got to be you, it's got to be you.
And listen, it was a wonderful thing to see him so buoyant, because I was saying, I was quite active on Twitter last night while the speech was on, because Sky, of course, your favourite TV station here in the UK, couldn't quite believe, they had this correspondent sort of walking around outside the venue in disbelief at the numbers of people that were there, almost like they still don't get it. They don't understand that Donald Trump appeals to the everyday, ordinary Joe and Mrs. Joe in America, and that he does things for them that no politician can do. And their commentary on what he was saying had to sort of disappear in the end, because there's no way, in my view, that any former president or former prime minister who's just lost an election could even command that kind of media presence or command the numbers of people who still want him to be there.
Yeah, look, let's just remember a couple of things that are, whether you like him or not, are indisputable facts. Well, he was the 45th president. Every president since George Washington to Obama was in the same category. What do I mean by that? For every president since the American Revolution, the people chose either a politician, like a former governor, a congressman or a senator, or a retired general like Washington or Eisenhower. Yeah. Every single time they were members of the quote-unquote swamp. 5 years ago, America did something really shocking. We chose somebody who was not a former general or a politician. That sent an earthquake. It's like Brexit, right? It's very similar to Brexit. Sent an earthquake across the political establishment. We've had enough with the liars on both left and right. And that's why it was a revolutionary choice. And that's why he's so popular. Despite being a billionaire from Manhattan, people relate to these guys. Look at the audience. I don't know if your footage showed the audience.
It did, yeah. It was a very mixed audience, wasn't it?
And full of kids.
Yeah.
Full of kids, full of youngsters. There's nobody in America who could say, I'm going to, a football stadium tomorrow in Poughkeepsie and fill it with tens of thousands of Americans. There would be over-registration by factors. Nobody, I don't care who you are, especially not sleepy, creepy Biden. Nobody can do what he does. And also, think of this. Yesterday was almost to the day 6 weeks since we said goodbye to the boss at Andrews Air Force Base. A few of us were there. He got on the Air Force One for the last time. And I thought personally, especially after the events of January the 6th and what happened in Congress, that he'd have to lay low for a few months before he could do anything political. 6 weeks later, he's back, right. And it is wall-to-wall coverage across American cable TV.
Unbelievable. My favourite part, I think, was when he was talking about the World Health Organization, when he said that when he decided to leave the World Health Organization, he asked them, for the $500 million that we pay you, what do we get? And then he said, what does China pay? And they said 39 million. And he went, well, that's ridiculous, right? So then they said, well, you can come in for 39 million if you want. And he said, no, I don't want to. And the people were lapping it up, and he was telling the story really well. And then he said, so now they've gone back in, these idiots who are so stupid they don't know how to negotiate a contract, and they're paying the World Health Organization 500 million again to be back in. I mean, it's quite remarkable, isn't it? He gives away stuff that nobody who's ever been in the Oval Office gives away.
Well, look at who he was. For 50 years, he was an incredibly successful businessman in one of the toughest sectors in the world, which is Manhattan real estate. So when he comes in, look, one of the most delightful things about working for Donald Trump in the White House is there were no sacred cows, absolutely none. If somebody came up to, and I saw generals do this, and it was not a wise thing to do. If somebody came up to him and he said, okay, why are we doing X? Why are we spending billions of dollars on this nation's defense if they're a rich nation? And the general says, well, because that's what we've been doing for 30 years.
Right.
I mean, he would explode, because just because somebody's been doing something for a long time doesn't mean it's right. And that's how he fixed NATO spending. That's how he built the wall. That's how he did immigration reform. So this is a guy who said, just because the swamp does things a certain way doesn't make it right. And they hated it. Look what's happening right now. Biden wants to go back to Iran and start giving them money again. He just convinced South Korea to release billions of dollars that had been frozen since 2019. This is the biggest state-sponsored terrorism, and we want to go back to the Iran deal. It was a dose of clarity. And what did he say yesterday? He says, enough, I love this bit, he said, enough with the lunatic left. And that's what it is. Whether it's the whole transgender thing with guys who can use girls' bathrooms in school, or whether it's the teachers' unions holding our kids hostage. He called it, as he saw it, open the schools back up. It's the same thing you're seeing in the UK. And it's just a dose of clarity that you don't get from regular politicians, Mike.
No, and it's what every parent in America wants him to say and wants to see happening, as indeed it is in this country. We don't want the kids to be sacrificed on the altar of lockdown. That's not what we're supposed to be doing. But, I mean, going back to old Biden, I see he started bombing Syria again as one of his first maneuvers into the world of peace that he wants to create.
Yeah, this is remarkable. People forget the first president since World War II to bomb 7 nations in one weekend was Obama. The guy who gets the Nobel Peace Prize before he's actually moved his furniture into the Oval Office bombs 7 nations in the same weekend. This tells you everything you need to know about how corrupt the establishment is, whether it's the Nobel Committee in Scandinavia, or whether it's the fake news industrial complex here in the UK. And of course, this is the guy. Everybody, remember, it's hard to remember these things, but they called Donald Trump the warmonger.
That's right.
For years. He is going to start a war, whether it's in the Korean Peninsula, whether it's with Iran. What happened? Zero new wars. We actually brought troops back in their thousands, put Iran back in their box, put North Korea back in their box. The guy who was accused of colluding with Russia day in, day out by the fake news media like CNN, was the first president ever, and I mean ever, to authorize the targeting of Russian mercenaries in Syria. Under Donald Trump's presidency, we killed more than 200 Russian mercenaries in Syria who were doing bad things. But he's the warmonger because he is colluding with Vladimir Putin. So you got to choose. Just to everybody who doesn't watch talk radio, please choose reality.
Absolutely, that's what we tell people. And what do you make of Biden's next target, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, who he says he's not going to deal with?
Yeah, so God bless Rick Grenell. So Ambassador Rick Grenell, who was our former ambassador to Berlin before he became acting director of national intelligence under Donald Trump, I think he tweeted it out just a few hours ago. He said this is a disgraceful repackaging of intelligence that brings nothing new to the table. We knew the involvement of the Saudi regime in the killing of this. He's not a journalist, let's be clear. He didn't deserve to die, but this was a pro-Muslim Brotherhood columnist who wrote like 3 pieces for the Washington Post. The idea that suddenly there's new evidence and we're going to shame the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, it's garbage. There is no new evidence. It's a repackaging to sell a point. And by the way, let's remember something else that's forgotten. Donald Trump brought 4 new peace deals, 4 from the Middle East. The area we were told would never, ever see a peace deal without Palestine. He brought Israel and numerous countries to the table. Now, all of that incredible edifice built by Donald Trump in the Middle East that brings stability is in danger because not only has Biden said we're going to snub Saudi Arabia, it took him 28 days, Mike, 28 days to have a phone call with the premier of Israel, our closest ally in the Middle East. Why? Ideology and because he hates Bibi Netanyahu. That's an outrage. He had a 2.5-hour phone call with the communist murderous head of China weeks before he called up the Prime Minister of Israel. What an outrage.
Yes, it's incredible, isn't it? Absolutely amazing. Donald Trump also last night said, we're not forming a new party, very firmly.
Yes.
We are the Republican Party. There is, as you and I have discussed before, a kind of a split in the Republican Party between the Mitt Romneys of this world and the larger part, I presume, which are the Trump-supporting members of the Republican Party. So what does he do from now on? Does he have one of these rallies kind of once a month or something? What does he do?
I don't know if the rallies are important right now because he's got a couple of years for himself personally to run again. So maybe the rallies start in a year and a half. The most crucial thing, and I've said it publicly on my show, America First, there are too many swamp creatures who want to have fellow swamp creatures run for office. This is the Mitch McConnells. Did you hear yesterday when Mitch McConnell's name was mentioned?
Yes.
The leader of the GOP in the Senate. The boos from the audience was stunning. They're almost as bad as for Biden. So what we need is a new organization. We have PACs and political action committees in America. We need a new PAC, not to raise money for the president. He's doing very nicely, thank you, with his Save America PAC. We need an organization that's going to vet new candidates for the House and the Senate to make sure they truly are America First, Make America Great Again protagonists and proponents, instead of having more swamp creatures like Mitt Romney, like Mitch McConnell run for office. That is crucial because we had a revolution. We had a quiet revolution, a peaceful revolution in 2016 of non-politicians come in like Matt Gaetz, Jim Jordan, and the president. That's what we need more of. So my suggestion, we need an organization to make America great again in choosing the right candidates, and it has to be created now.
I was watching last night the sort of preamble to Trump appearing, and there was an amazing sort of tribute to Rush Limbaugh, who we spoke about last week. And I didn't even know that he was deaf, right?
Yes.
The fact that he was deaf was an extraordinary thing. But what I loved about the clips that they showed was the one where Donald Trump awarded him, or announced that he was awarding him in the House the medal, and Nancy Pelosi standing behind him. You could literally see her trying very, very hard not to throw up. I mean, it was incredible. She now, of course, is banking on this big lawsuit coming to his way up in New York, because all the Trump haters are now saying, well, they may not have got him in the Senate, but they're going to get him in the Southern District of Manhattan, where he's been engaged in mortgage fraud. I mean, it's never going to stop this nonsense, is it?
It's an outrage, especially when you know the fact that the chief federal prosecutor in the Southern District is Cyrus Vance Jr., who is the son of a Carter White House official.
Right.
So this is all politics. This has nothing to do with justice. And let's just be clear. 2 impeachments, total failure. Then we had the Mueller probe, $40 million of taxpayer money, 50 FBI agents, hundreds of affidavits, hundreds of interviews to bring up what? Nothing. Jack diddly squat, nothing. And now they think they're going to get him this time. Let's be clear. Look at the last 50 years of Donald Trump's career and tell me who usually wins when somebody goes up against the Donald. Yeah, it's the Donald.
Right.
So good luck, Cyrus Vance.
Right. But also, I was listening to a rather ludicrous conversation last night on this very radio station, bizarrely, but not by people that would normally be listening to this show, saying that they've got this, big pot of money. They're going to hire loads of attorneys. This guy Cyrus Vance has given up his lucrative, private law firm to go and work for the government because he's such a decent man. And you're kind of going, hello, are you actually living in the real world? So we're going to waste a load of taxpayers' money. You're going to hire a load more lawyers, and you're going to try and somehow get some kind of charge against Donald Trump, for which he will probably, if it ever comes, get off with.
Yeah, let me warn those people. Let me give them a little parable of what happens to people who go up against Donald Trump. There was an organization created about 2 years ago to destroy Donald Trump called the Lincoln Project.
Ah, yes.
Absolutely shameful that they took Abraham Lincoln, the first Republican president's name, as the name of their organization. These people were disgusting. They ran attack ads comparing the president to Hitler. I mean, just absolutely disgusting. As former Republicans, these were never Trumpers who were former Republicans who raised $90 million that we now find half of which went to their private companies. The founders funneled 50 million into their own back pockets. Yesterday, they were at it again on Twitter, attacking conservatives. And I just curiously went to their website. The Lincoln Project website is down. Could it be because they found out one of their founding members, John Weaver, is a pedophile who was sexting with underage 14-year-old men? So, you know, there seems to be some confluence between never Trumpers and people who have other issues, let me say that, as loosely as I can. So that it's not a good idea, because this guy is we elected Donald Trump because he's a fighter, Mike, because he never ever gives in, and he fights for the forgotten men and women of America. You saw that last night on the podium, and Cyrus Vance and the rest of the deranged individuals out there, they're going to try, but they're going to fail. I guarantee it.
And all they're going to do is push more people towards the Republican Party. And as you were saying last week, I think, the midterms are not that far away. And there's going to be some very interesting matchups going on, I suspect, between those people who have stood for the Republican Party but criticised Donald Trump and those that he would like to see taking their place.
Yeah, let's be very clear here. This is a man who, in the last election, got more votes than any incumbent president ever in our history. Secondly, despite, and this is the truly stunning thing, Mike, despite 4 years of incessant libel, of being called a white supremacist, an Islamophobe, and a Nazi by the mainstream fake news media, Donald Trump acquired almost 12 million more votes than he did 4 years ago when he was elected. And the most amazing of all, given the calumny, given the lies said about him 24/7, is he had the highest percentage of black and Hispanic votes since for any Republican president since the 1960s. So that tells you one thing. Just like Brexit in the UK, the average guy, the average gal sees through the miasma of propaganda and the lies and says, I just don't buy it.
Absolutely right. Sebastian, great to talk to you as ever.